Struggling to report your Backdoor Roth IRA in your tax return software? Hi, this is Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So it is April 2024 as I record this, early April. People are trying to get their tax return done, and they did a Backdoor Roth IRA in 2023, and they're struggling, right? It's hard to report this stuff in the tax return software. Some people even say, such and such software, they don't report the Backdoor Roth IRA correctly. Well, I'm here to say, yeah, they probably do report the Backdoor Roth IRA correctly, but it can be very difficult on the end user, end to get it right. Sometimes the tax return software isn't presenting it in a very clear way, so it makes it challenging on the end user, right? So let's dig in. Let's think about a theoretical Backdoor Roth IRA. Someone in January 2023 contributed $6,500 to a non-deductible traditional IRA. And then in February 2023, they convert the entire amount when it's worth $6,505. You'll see that on my little 8606 right here. At that moment, they convert it all to a Roth, right? That's colloquially what we refer to as a backdoor Roth. And look, I can't tell you how to prepare your own tax return, but what I can do is raise 3 problems that you might be having in terms of how you're reporting it in the tax return software, and offer a few suggestions about how you could remedy the end user error in terms of how you're actually putting it into tax return software. So the first big problem I see is folks don't put in the fact that they made a non-deductible IRA contribution, right? That's the $6,500 in January 2023 in my example. That needs to be reported in many tax return software programs. It's going to be in something like a deduction section. There's going to be a deduction section, and there's traditional IRAs listed. Funny thing is, you're not deducting it, but that's generally how the tax return software may be categorizing a non-deductible traditional IRA contribution. That's $6,500. Now, sometimes people don't report that in the tax return software because they don't get a form on that, right? There's no form that comes usually until May, and maybe they're doing their tax return in March or April. They don't have a form telling them they made a non-deductible traditional IRA contribution, but it's vitally important. If you did the backdoor Roth in 2023, you need to report the non-deductible traditional IRA contribution, and you got to make sure the tax return software is spitting out one of these 8606s and an amount on that line 1. So that's the first big mistake that people make, is they don't report the non-deductible traditional IRA contribution. Well, let's say you did that and the software still isn't working. Well, the second big mistake is line 6 on the form 8606. That's this line that says, hey, what's the value of all my traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, and simple IRAs, traditional, on December 31st, 2023? And you got to make sure the tax return software has asked you that question. It may be that either user error or just not so great design on the software end. Maybe it hasn't asked you that question. It's got to ask you that question. You got to respond. Now, hopefully you're able to respond 0 or some very small amount. If it's not a small amount or not 0, then you probably shouldn't have done the backdoor Roth. You still got to report it, learn a lesson, probably don't do it again in the future, or do some additional restructuring. But if you don't report this number, the backdoor Roth is going to be incomplete in terms of the tax return software and the reporting. So you got to make sure you enter in that value. This is another one of those things that until May, you're not going to usually get a document in the mail telling you this. So that's a reason people sometimes miss it, is, well, it's not in my tax return folder. And, I've been saving all the mail on my tax return. I don't have anything on this. Yeah, I get that, but you still got to report it on the tax return, just the way the system works. And then the third big mistake that might be happening for folks trying to do the backdoor Roth IRA in their tax return software is they may not be reporting the fact that they have a Roth conversion, right? You get a 1099-R, it has the information, okay, that's got to go in the tax return. The tax return software has got to also ask you, and you got to say yes, Did you do a Roth conversion? This is so important, right? The amount on that 1099-R is the Roth conversion, but you got to make sure the software knows that it was a Roth conversion, not just a regular distribution. If the tax return software doesn't know that it's a Roth conversion, it's not going to put amounts on this Part 2 of the 8606, and you need to report amounts on the Part 2 of the 8606 if you did a backdoor Roth last year. So, this is important. The 8606 Part 2 has to report that Roth conversion step that happened in the year 2023. If it happened in 2024, it doesn't go on the 2023 backdoor Roth 8606. But anyway, assuming the Roth conversion step did occur in 2023, this Part 2 must be filled out. And if it's not filled out, there's something wrong, and you got to revise the tax return before you file it. So those are the big three that I see. And there are other mistakes. And I will say, look, on the end user experience, it can be very challenging. But if you're doing your own tax return, you're trying to get that backdoor Roth properly input into the tax return software. 1, make sure you report the non-deductible traditional IRA contribution. 2, make sure you report the balance, hopefully zero, but it is what it is. Report the balance in all traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, and simple IRAs on December 31st, 2023. And 3, make sure you report the fact that, yes, you did a Roth conversion in 2023. Lastly, right, this is not your tax return. This is an academic video. Please rely on your own judgment and your own advisors when doing your own tax return. I'm not doing your own tax return, obviously. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please mash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.